Hi, and welcome to the BlueScreen Brothers. We are no longer only on sound, we are also turning over to videos because sometimes I just need to get the explanation shown to me and not just told. So today I'm actually invited my BlueScreen Brothers Marius. Hello, Marius.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Yeah.
It was French, so we're gonna take this in, right?
Yeah, we are going to change language during the presentation and
Yes.
let's see.
So we're going to talk about graph today.
Yeah, because somebody told me that Olav, now you have actually created some PowerShell scripts and done something useful with PowerShell. So I need to tell you that you should do something more than just PowerShell. So
yeah,
I don't know actually what they are meaning because I'm just happy with PowerShell.
Exactly.
So, but I figure out I could either buy a course or sit down and find something online, or I could just call you Marius.
Yeah, exactly.
So much cheaper.
That's the cheapest way, exactly.
Yeah.
So Microsoft Graph, what is it? That's usually the question I'm getting. And the Microsoft Graph is essentially a single API that Microsoft makes available to all, both private and enterprise customers, which essentially just surfaces information from all the different Microsoft Cloud services. That means it could be from Exchange, from SharePoint Online, from Azure AD, or anything else you can think of in the Microsoft Cloud, essentially. So Microsoft actually has two, call them big APIs. So you have the Microsoft Graph and you have the Azure Resource Manager API, which is a completely different API for managing Azure stuff. But
that's the one called the REST API. And
yes, correct. Yeah. The Azure REST API. So now we're going to talk about the Microsoft Graph. And you can see my screen where I have signed into the Azure portal showing Azure Active Directory. And usually I start showing Microsoft Graph through Azure AD just because it's very simple to understand. So in here we have, for example, users, right? So in the portal, I can list all these users and whatnot. I can go in and find all the different groups. Well, this is all demo content. And that is fine. But often I would like to be able to get these data either through a script, or I would like to dump them to different kinds of file formats or whatnot. It could be so many different things. And of course, the Azure portal has a few features, but let's not care about all of these bulk operations and things that you can do here. So in order to get to the Microsoft Graph, you just go to graph.microsoft.com. Here you can get all kinds of different documentation. So for example, on top here, you see docs. So this has all kinds of different things you can read. So you can see users, you can see videos about how to use things, but we're creating we're creating a video right now. So let's not play a video in our video.
So instead of seeing our video, you can see this video. So let's just play it.
That's the simplest way of recording. Yeah. But you also find this Graph Explorer, and that's very handy. So when you click on Graph Explorer, you get here and you can see this tenant sample. So you can actually work with many of the graph endpoints without signing in. So I can actually now click run query. And what is really annoying here actually is that when you use one of the demo tenants from Microsoft, that's the same users. You can see they even have the same kind of UPN. So it's just very easy to work with the sample content rather than actually signing in and working with your real content. But
so
whatever.
this is a way of playing around without accessing anything you can damage or do something wrong with, or you can show
exactly.
It. Yeah.
So let's say you don't have access to a tenant at all. You just want to try to create something that can read users from a tenant or something. You can do it without doing anything other than just run query here. But we want to sign in to our own tenant. So we can click on this obscure sign in button here. So the pop-up tells me to sign in so I'm already signed in, so I'm just going to click my user account, and then it will ask for some permissions. And this is an essential part of how you access the Microsoft Graph. So essentially, you have two ways of defining access, either as a delegated access. That means that the Microsoft Graph is all the requests are done on behalf of my user account. So that means that this is what we see here. So when I say sign in and read your profile, that's so it can sign in and read my profile and maintain access. Okay, cool. But that doesn't really give me too much. But I'll show you that.
Yeah, because then you will only be able to play with your own users' information.
Yes. Yes, or your own user, not users even. So we'll see that very soon. But you can also access the Microsoft Graph with application permissions. So that means that if you have a service principal, and we have podcasts and all things talking about that, but you can, instead of having a user account, you can have an application or service principal, call it whatever you want. Authenticating either with a client ID and secret, or client ID and certificate, or like a federated credential. But that can also request, for example, an access called user.read.all, and that is a OAuth 2 scope. And there's so many different things that you can talk about when it comes to identity and things here. We'll probably dive deeper into it a bit later. Let's just accept this for now. So now I am signed in. I can now run the query, the default query here. And you can see the data here changed. So what is it that I'm doing now? That is the question. So this URL, that is the graph endpoint that I'm trying to talk to. So let's break this down. Graph.microsoft.com, that is the Microsoft Graph. That is where it's located. Then you see this v.1.0, and that's essentially the production endpoint. Which
so it doesn't mean that it is a really old API version.
No, exactly. And that is a bit annoying with the Microsoft Graph, because they could have called this prod or something. V1.0 sounds like there will very soon be a V1.1 or a 2.0 or something.
I would never like to use version 1.0 of anything.
No, exactly, because you need to get to at least version 1.7 or something before it starts working, right? But you can change this to beta as well. So this will actually return the same, or actually even more attributes. But this beta endpoint here can change very soon. So tomorrow the output can be slightly different without you being notified of that. While the V1 endpoint, the life cycle here, you will get information about this long before things happen. So
it's a little bit like the Azure AD and Azure AD preview modules in PowerShell.
Yes, correct. And usually if you create something that will last, like a script or an application or something, querying the graph, always use v1.
Yeah.
There are certain things that only exists in beta. For example, I believe all of the privileged identity management APIs only exist in beta currently. And that's annoying. So then you need to use the beta endpoint. But that also means that you might run into an incident where your application suddenly stops working because Microsoft changed something. That's a risk you have to take when working with a beta endpoint. So we'll focus on v1 for now. Yeah, so that's just a version thing. And then comes the graph endpoint itself, which is me. And me is quite logical. It's my user account. So when I run this query here, you can see this data here returned. And this is me. I'm this administrator user, and I can get the object ID of my account, my mail, and stuff. This is the default set of attributes returned. And I can also say things like select, ID, and user principal name, for example. So this is very useful because it helps you. You can see that these auto-completing things. So it actually helps you do the right
So it's
selects.
It's quite similar to the select in PowerShell where you select what you want to show. Yeah.
Correct. So and that's very useful when getting a lot of users and you only need the ID and the user principal name rather than getting the whole user object. That takes a lot longer time than getting only what you need. So this is now a parameter, the select parameter. So we have different kinds of endpoints. Let's try accessing users. What do you think will happen before I click run query?
Yeah, you will get a list of all the users instead of just yourself.
Or we will get this permission error.
Because they don't trust you, right?
Yeah, because when we signed in, we agreed to the graph or this session getting my basic profile.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, so you did it on behalf of the organizations.
Exactly. So in the Graph Explorer, this will actually help you. So you can see Modify Permissions Preview tab. So I can actually go into here, and this will know about quite a few of the. It will look at this and suggest a few permissions that you can actually request. For example, we can say user.readAll here. Allows the app to read blah, 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 blah of your users, organizations on your behalf. So you can also see a tiny check mark here. This is admin consent required. So that actually means that in order to say user read all, you need an admin account to grant access to that. But I have that, so let's click consent.
Yeah. I also saw you had user read basic all without admin consent.
Yes. So that means you can read fewer attributes essentially.
Yeah, okay.
A tiny subset. Yeah. So now you see the same screen as before, but this time read all users' full profiles. Accept. So now
will it now be created a graph enterprise application?
No. Or well, there will be the Microsoft Graph will exist as an enterprise app, but nothing that you actually control. So we can actually see that so let's first click run query. We can see this now returns an array, so called value of different user objects. So there's a conference room, which is a user object. There's Adele. There's my account. There's Alex, and so on. Different users being listed.
Yeah.
And this will now list, because I don't have that many users in my tenant, it will list all users. but it could also list fewer users. So if I were to say top 3 users, then it will work the same way. You will see something on the top here, which I will comment on. But you can see now 1, 2, 3 users, and then it stops.
Could you also add the select on the top 3 users setting?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you can combine these, right? So you can say and select ID user principal name, for example, as we did before. Run query. So now we'll see these 3 users will actually be listed with only the 2 attributes, and we'll have this next link. So this is called paging. It's a bit more of an advanced topic, but the point is that if you want to read all the users from a tenant, you cannot simply say just ignore top and just say I expect to get 20,000 users, because by default this top is 100 and you can extend it to 999. But if you have more 1,000 users or more, then you will only see the first, or you will not be able to get everyone from one single page. So now I can take this here. This contains something called a skip token and things. But you can see I can just take this URL, paste it here, click run, and now it's the 3 next users, and then I get a new next link.
So you actually managed to demonstrate it instead of creating 999 plus some more users. So yeah.
Correct. So that would take a lot longer, right? So so now I got the next page, and if I take this again, I will get yet another next page.
That was actually really cool, because that's useful when we are looking for something. It was on top, and you will
yes,
restrain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So cool. I think the last thing we'll mention in this episode, and then because we need to have short episodes, we'll just look at this access token here. So as you can see, this is possible to copy, and this is very useful. And what this is essentially what my browser is presenting to the Microsoft Graph in order to tell the Microsoft Graph who I am. So if we look at this token here, this is something that I get when I sign in. If I go to jot.ms, which is like a decoder page, so this is called a JSON web token, or JOT for short, and it's split into 3. It has like a header, it has a payload, and a signature. And the payload here, you can see that the app display name is Graph Explorer. You can see that, let's see the scopes here somewhere. Or am I blind? Yeah, here. So here we can see the different scopes that I have requested. So here you see this user.readAll.
So this is a kind of a behind the scene of what you are doing in the graph.
Yes, exactly. So and this is now signed by Azure AD in this signature. So I can't forge it. I cannot like edit this, adding some additional scopes and trying to send it to Azure AD. That will fail, because then the signature is no longer valid. But this is presented in the authorization header of all HTTP requests, and it's what and so this is what is used to essentially now not needing to re-authenticate to Azure AD all the time. You will see this expiring. There's an EXP. So this value here, I think this is a Unix time decoder or something. If we just look at this, convert, then we see, so if you look at my time, 10:26 a.m. right now, and in my time zone, this is 11:41. So this is when it expires. So in an hour in relative, essentially. So So
Cool.
so if I cannot simply store this value in my script and expect it to run tomorrow, then I need other means of doing that, like a refresh token or re-authentication. But yeah, we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, cool. Then we have a little bit of understanding. So I think we will end on this note now, but we will promise that you will get more episodes going deeper into the topic. So
Yes,
thanks
because
for this session.
you can see in the list on the left here, my photo, my profile, my email, or my manager. So there's so many things that we can dig into. You see
Do you have
Excel.
a change? Do you have a change my manager option?
Yes. Fire manager.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, until next episode, then, Marius.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.